Who can resist the delightful smell of fresh baked bread? Nobody. Here is an easy bread method that gives perfect results every time. Here are the ingredients you'll need to make this fantastic bread. Start with 2 cups, about 110 degrees of warm water. We'll also need 3 1/4 cups of bread flour. If bread flour is not available, you can use general purpose flour. You'll also need 2 tablespoons of sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of rapid rise yeast, 1/2 teaspoon of rapid rise yeast, an egg, and 2 tablespoons of your favorite olive oil. Before we start, we're going to prepare a place for the bread to proof. Your oven with the oven light on is an ideal place to proof bread. So let's get started. Drop an unbroken egg into your measuring cup with the water. Level your cup and adjust for 2 cups or 16 ounces of water with the egg in it. Adding an egg will enrich your dough and will aid in rising the bread. Crack your egg and mix it into the warm water. Once it is thoroughly mixed in, add in your sugar and then add in the teaspoon of yeast that we have set aside. Measure your flour accurately. Use a straight edge to wipe across the top of the cup to level off the cup. Tapping on the cup before leveling the flour ensures there are no measurement errors from air trapped under the flour. We're going to finish up here with our final measure. This will be 1/4 of a cup of flour, giving us a total of 3 1/4 cups of flour. Now it is time to mix our batch of dough. We will be combining the flour with our mixture of water, egg, sugar, and yeast. All you're doing here is you're combining the ingredients. Now let's add in the 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Adding oil to your bread dough will create a more tender interior and a more delicate, crisper exterior. Now let's add in the rest of our liquid and combine these ingredients. Once we have combined all of these ingredients, we will finally add in our salt, the very last step. Salt does affect the action of the yeast, and that is why it is put in separately from the other ingredients. We have a second kitchen here, and in that kitchen is a KitchenAid artesian mixer. And I'm definitely going to use that. It saves so much time. The process here is to knead for 10 minutes, let it rest for 10 minutes, then a final kneading of 5 to 15 minutes. We've been kneading for about 10 minutes, so we're going to stop and let the dough rest here. The dough is beginning to turn elastic, and that is what we want. After this rest period and one more kneading, it'll be perfect. We restarted the kneading about 10 minutes ago, and now let's look at the dough and see how the consistency is. If your dough is elastic and rubbery like this, you're finished. If not, continue kneading just a little bit longer. The dough is ready to head back to the main kitchen. Let me sum up the kneading process. We kneaded for 10 minutes. We rested for 10 minutes. Then we kneaded for 10 minutes. Now let's cover our dough and place it in our warm box. The warm box is our oven with only the oven light on. And now it's 2 hours later. Let's take the dough and work with it. Wow, look at that dough. This is a very wet dough, but we're still going to work with it, and I want to show you how. Spread a little bit of flour on your working surface. Pour your dough out onto your working surface. Use a spatula to help it if necessary. I'm dipping the spatula in the dry flour to keep it from sticking to the dough. The secret to working this dough is to make sure you keep flour under it and on top of it. Start first by dusting the flour with a little bit of rapid rise yeast. I'm going to sprinkle it with some flour. We'll do this more than once. We're going to pour a couple capfuls of olive oil on top of this dough. This is an optional step, but I think you will like the way it turns out. Now we'll go ahead and put some flour on top of the dough. The objective here is to introduce more flour, more sprinkles of yeast, and air into our dough. You're going to fold this dough approximately a half a dozen times, being careful not to crush it. Let's roll it up into a ball and cover it. We're going to set the dough aside and get our pan ready to receive this dough. To our oven. Put in 1 large or 2 small trays of water at the bottom of the oven. Let's get started shaping this dough into rolls and buns. To help prevent sticking, I've flour dusted my oiled baking pan. I like to shape my dough into submarine rolls and smaller sandwich buns. I'm cutting this first sub roll out of the center of this dough ball. Then I'm going to lay down some flour and roll the sub roll over the flour and then place it onto the tray. You don't have to cut these sections perfectly. This wet dough is extremely forgiving and will take form once it's in the pan. I made my sub roll just a little too long, so I'll cut off a piece and we will make a bun out of this extra piece. The beauty of this wet dough is that it is not particular about shapes and sizes. Just get it on the pan. It'll work out, and you'll have beautiful, delicious bread, I promise. We're going to cover these up here and let them rise for about an hour. We'll be back in about 45 minutes. We're back, and I'm going to turn on the oven now to 340 to 375 degrees. Using a water bottle with clean water, I'm simply going to spray the bread until all of the dry flour is absorbed into the top. It's been about 20 more minutes, and now the oven is up to temperature. These are going into the oven for a minimum of 25 to 30 minutes. At the halfway point, go ahead and rotate them for even baking.